Ignore Wall Street. Ignore the flashing red and green lights of the S&P 500. That is just the front of the circus. If you really want to find the heartbeat of the global economy, you have to go to a windowless room in New Jersey, or a guarded data center in Texas. Here, in absolute silence. More than $1 quadrillion moves back and forth every single year. No cash, no gold bars, just binary code racing through fiber optic cables. We usually think of a financial crisis as stock prices crashing, but that is 23rd century thinking. In this hyper-connected world, the real crisis isn't devaluation, it is disconnection. This system, known as Fedwire, was designed to withstand every economic shock, every recession. It is a fortress. But this fortress has a problem. It was built for a world of gentlemen bankers, not for a world of digital ghosts who know how to walk through walls. Today we are not talking about public debt or interest rates. We are talking about the arteries of the economy, and why its greatest enemies no longer use guns, but use globalization itself to attack its creator. Most people believe the Federal Reserve's power comes from the printing press. That is a distraction. Any government can print paper. Real power is not about creating money, it is about settling it. This brings us to the invisible spine of the American empire, the Fedwire Funds Service. In technical terms, it is a real-time gross settlement system. That sounds boring by design, but consider the terrifying mechanics of it. When a massive institution needs to move $1 billion to another bank, they do not load a truck, they do not ship gold. They send a digital instruction containing a routing number and an account number. Upon receiving this signal, the Federal Reserve simply debits the reserve account of the sender and credits the receiver. It happens instantly. The money did not physically move across space. The ledger changed, and once the ledger changes, the debt is extinguished. It is final. This is the heartbeat of the financial world, and it beats in the dark. In 2022 alone, this silent engine processed approximately 196 million transfers. The total value exceeded $1 quadrillion. That is a 1 followed by 15 zeros. To put that into perspective, the entire annual GDP of the United States is a rounding error compared to the volume that surges through these pipes. This is not just the American economy, because the dollar is the global reserve currency. This is the nervous system of planetary trade. Every massive oil shipment, every sovereign debt payment, and every frantic liquidity injection eventually ripples through this specific set of servers. We spend our days arguing on social media about a few $1 million in government spending. We analyze stock market charts hoping to catch a minor correction. Meanwhile, this system moves the equivalent of the GDP of a small nation in the time it takes you to pour a cup of coffee. It does so without fanfare. It does so without debate. It is efficient, absolute, and completely invisible to the public eye. This is the ultimate form of power, the kind you never have to hear. We sleep soundly because we assume this ledger is immutable. We trust the math. We assume that the digital walls protecting this $1 quadrillion flow are impenetrable because for decades they appeared to be, but engineering always demands a trade-off. To achieve this godlike speed and volume, the architects of modern finance had to sacrifice the one thing that kept the vault safe for the last century: isolation. They connected the ledger to the network. And when you build a superhighway for money to travel at the speed of light, you unknowingly build a superhighway for those who want to intercept it. In 1918, if you wanted to bring the American financial system to its knees, you needed a pair of wire cutters and a map of the telegraph lines. It was a kinetic job. You had to physically locate the copper wires carrying Morse code between the 12 Federal Reserve banks and sever them. It was crude, it was dangerous, and it required you to be on American soil. Today you can achieve a far more devastating result from a laptop in a coffee shop in Eastern Europe, sipping a latte while the infrastructure of the world's reserve currency burns. The evolution of Fedwire is a masterclass in how we unknowingly traded resilience for efficiency. It began with the telegraph, dots and dashes tapping out the rhythm of early industrial commerce. It was slow, but it was structurally simple. It was a closed loop. But money hates friction, and the global economy demanded speed. Over the decades, those telegraph wires were replaced by telephone lines, then by mainframe computers, and finally by a sophisticated proprietary IP-based network. The growth was explosive. From 1996 to 2016 alone, the volume of transactions surged by 79%. The mandate was clear: speed is king. Liquidity must flow instantly. To ensure this flow never stops, the Federal Reserve constructed a physical infrastructure that borders on the paranoid. They built a 3-layered defense system designed to withstand the apocalypse. You have the primary processing sites, fortress-like data centers. Behind them, a hot backup site, a mirror image of the main system, fully staffed, processing data in real time, ready to take over the load in milliseconds if the primary site blinks. And behind that, a warm backup site, situated hundreds of miles away, designed to survive a regional catastrophe like a nuclear strike or a massive hurricane. From a physical standpoint, the system is invincible. You cannot bomb it offline. You cannot storm it with tanks. It has triple redundancy. It has geographical dispersion. It is a masterpiece of 20th century engineering designed to survive 20th century threats. And that is exactly where the trap lies. There is a profound dry irony in how we approach modern security. We pour billions of dollars into reinforced concrete walls. We install biometric scanners that can read the blood vessels in your retina. We hire armies of armed guards to patrol the perimeter. We treat these servers like the crown jewels, protecting them from every conceivable physical threat. And then to make them useful, to make the money move, we plug this entire impregnable fortress into the internet. It is the architectural equivalent of building a bank vault out of diamond-hard steel, impenetrable to any drill or explosive known to man, and then leaving the key under the doormat labeled global connectivity. The engineers who built Fedwire focused on continuity. They wanted to make sure the system never went down due to a power outage or a storm. They succeeded. But in doing so, they expanded the attack surface from a few physical telegraph poles to the entire digital globe. The transition from closed-circuit Morse code to open protocol IP didn't just make money faster, it made the system visible. Convenience always extracts attacks. The price we paid for the ability to settle a billion-dollar debt in seconds is that we can never truly close the door again. The system must remain open to function, and in a digital world, an open door is not just a service entry for bankers. It is an invitation. It did not take long for someone to notice this open door. But the first major guests were not common criminals looking for a quick score. They were not teenagers in a basement. These were visitors with diplomatic passports and a very different agenda. They realized that if you can't beat America on the battlefield, you don't need to. You just need to log in. Forget the Hollywood image of bank robbers in ski masks storming a lobby with assault rifles. That is a relic of the past. The most dangerous financial criminals of the 21st century do not drive getaway cars. They drive government-issued sedans. They carry security clearances. They have pension plans. And they answer not to a crime boss, but to a flag. This shift from criminal syndicates to sovereign entities brings us to the Lazarus Group. The name sounds like bad science fiction, but it is the operational arm of what is widely believed to be the North Korean state apparatus. When the Western world sanctioned their economy into absolute stagnation, the regime did not simply accept its fate. They pivoted. They realized that if they could not participate in the global economy legally, they would extract value from it forcibly. They turned hacking into a component of their GDP. Consider the Bangladesh bank heist in 2016. This was not a smash and grab. It was a patient, methodical infiltration of the SWIFT network, the supposedly secure messaging system that banks trust implicitly to move capital. The attackers sat inside the system, watching, learning the protocols, and waiting for the perfect moment. They attempted to siphon nearly $1 billion out of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. They were not stopped by a firewall or a brilliant detective. They were stopped because of a typo. A spelling error in the transfer instructions raised a red flag. They still managed to disappear with tens of millions, but the intent was clear. Fast forward to 2022, and they had perfected their craft. They targeted the Ronin network, a bridge for cryptocurrency, and drained $615 million. This resulted in immediate US sanctions, but the money was already gone, washed through a labyrinth of digital mixers. There is a profound, dry irony in this situation. We have a nation that has been completely excommunicated from the global financial order, cut off from trade, and isolated by every major power. Yet this same isolation has made them the most astute observers of our financial plumbing. They are not allowed to open a bank account, yet they understand the SWIFT messaging protocol better than most branch managers. We thought excluding them would disarm them. Instead, it forced them to weaponize their exclusion. They treated the global banking system not as a market, but as a target-rich environment. This is no longer just theft. This is asymmetric warfare, where the battlefield is the ledger and the ammunition is malicious code. But even for state-sponsored actors, attacking a central bank or a SWIFT terminal is high-risk, high-stress work. The defenses are heavy. The eyes of the world are watching. The predators realized that they did not need to keep banging their heads against the steel doors of the traditional banking system. Not when a new financial frontier had just opened up. A digital Wild West where the vaults are made of open-source code, the deposits are massive, and the sheriff is conspicuously missing. We ran away from Wall Street. We ran because we hated the surveillance, the gatekeepers, and the arbitrary fees. We sprinted into the arms of crypto and decentralized finance, believing we had found the promised land of financial sovereignty, and we discovered a brutal truth. In this new world, you do not pay a monthly service fee, you pay an ignorance fee. And the cost of that fee is usually everything you own. DeFi promised a utopia without middlemen. No bankers, just code. They replaced the compliance officer in the expensive suit with the smart contract. It sounds sophisticated, objective, and safe, but a smart contract is just a script written by a human being. And humans make mistakes. When a bank teller makes a mistake, you file a complaint and get a refund. When a smart contract contains a mistake, you lose a fortune. The vulnerability is no longer in the vault door, it is in the logic of the agreement itself. Look at the ledger of casualties. It reads like a graveyard of good intentions and bad programming. Take Beanstalk Farms. In 2022, they lost $180 million. The attacker did not break a password. They exploited a governance voting mechanism. They essentially bought enough votes to legally pass a motion to send all the money to themselves. They used the system's own rules to destroy it. Then there was Poly Network, which bled $600 million due to a system vulnerability. Or Coincheck, which lost $534 million in one of history's largest thefts. Wormhole lost another $322 million. These billions were not taken at gunpoint. They were siphoned off because a developer missed a line of code or left a logical backdoor unlocked. There is a specific dry irony that permeates this space. The crypto evangelists have a mantra: code is law. It is a philosophy of absolute neutrality. The code executes exactly what is written, no matter the consequence. It sounds noble in a manifesto. It is less noble when the code allows a thief to drain a liquidity pool dry. Suddenly, the same libertarians screaming for deregulation are the first ones dialing 911, begging for the intervention of the very human law and centralized authorities they claim to despise. It turns out that code is law is a fantastic slogan, right up until the moment the law rules against you. This is the unadvertised cost of sovereignty. True financial freedom means absolute financial responsibility. There is no FDIC insurance here to bail you out. There is no customer service hotline to reverse a transaction. If you click the wrong link, or trust the wrong protocol, the money simply ceases to exist. Most people say they want freedom, but they are not actually ready to be their own bank security team. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, I don't hold crypto. I don't use DeFi. I keep my money in a regulated insured bank, so I am safe. You are wrong. The attackers have realized that cracking complex encryption and auditing smart contracts is hard work. It is much easier to hack the one component of the financial system that cannot be patched, updated, or rewritten. You can have a password that is 20 characters long. You can use an authenticator app with rotating 6-digit codes. You can carry a hardware security key on your keychain. But do you trust your own ears? If your phone rings right now and it is your boss, or your spouse, or your broker, and they tell you to move money immediately, do you ask them for a cryptographic signature, or do you just listen? In 2020, a bank manager in Hong Kong picked up the phone. On the other end was the director of a company he had known for years. The voice was perfect. The tone, the cadence, the slight impatience of a busy executive, it was all there. The director authorized a transfer of $35 million to support a business acquisition. The manager, being a diligent employee, processed the transaction. He did not know that the man on the other end of the line did not exist. The voice was a digital clone generated by artificial intelligence. The hackers had not cracked the bank's encryption. They had cracked the bank manager's perception of reality. This was not a glitch. It was the debut of deep voice technology as a financial weapon, and it renders traditional security questions obsolete. How do you verify an identity when the thief sounds exactly like the owner? But you might think, I don't authorize $35 million transfers, so I am safe. You are not. The war has moved to the device in your pocket. While you sleep, mobile banking Trojans with names like Fake Calls, T-Bot, FluBot, and SharkBot are evolving. These are not your average viruses. They are designed to survive in the ecosystem of your phone. They can mimic the login screens of your banking apps perfectly. They can intercept the SMS messages containing your two-factor authentication codes before you even see them. They do not break down the door. They wait for you to unlock it, and then they walk in right behind you. There is a dark, almost comedic irony in how we approach this problem. We spend billions of dollars building digital fortresses. We deploy firewalls that can stop a state-sponsored cyber army. We develop algorithms to detect anomalies in data traffic. And yet the entire system collapses simply because a polite, obedient human being did exactly what a voice on the phone told them to do. The single greatest point of failure in the history of cybersecurity is not software. It is human obedience. We are biologically hardwired to trust the people we recognize, and that biological trait has now been turned into a zero-day exploit. In this new era, seeing is believing is a dangerous lie. Hearing is believing is a financial death sentence. Trust, the fundamental currency that allows society to function, is now capable of being counterfeited just like a banknote. And this weaponization of trust does not stop at the individual level. If a fake voice can deceive a bank manager, imagine what happens when a fake software update deceives an entire global corporation. The deception is now moving upstream, infiltrating the very supply chains that hold the global economy together. In the age of myth, if you wanted to destroy a fortress like Troy, you needed a wooden horse. In the age of digital finance, if you want to infiltrate a central bank or a Wall Street titan, you do not need a horse. You do not even need to attack them directly. You simply need to compromise the company that updates their calendar software. This is the brutal reality of the supply chain attack. It is the most elegant and devastating strategy in the hacker's playbook, because it exploits the very structure of modern business. Consider the SolarWinds breach. The attackers did not smash through the front gates of the US Treasury or the major banks. That would have been noisy. Instead, they quietly inserted malicious code into a routine software update from a third-party vendor. Thousands of organizations, including Fortune 500 companies and government agencies, downloaded this update voluntarily. They opened the gates themselves because they trusted the vendor. Or look at the Excellion breach. Excellion was just a service for sharing large files. It was a utility, a small fish. But by compromising this boring utility, hackers gained backdoor access to the whales, including Morgan Stanley and the Reserve Bank of New Zealand. They swam upstream from the vendor to the client. The result was catastrophic data theft and extortion. The insurance giant CNA Financial found itself paralyzed by ransomware, ultimately paying $40 million just to regain control of its own systems. There is a grim irony in corporate boardrooms today. CEOs love to talk about optimizing the supply chain and outsourcing efficiency. They cut costs by hiring the cheapest third-party vendors for IT, for payroll, for cloud storage. They call it lean management. In reality, they are outsourcing their own survival. They are handing the keys of the castle to a janitor they have never met, simply because his service was 10% cheaper. You can have the most expensive firewall in the world, but it is useless if your partner's security budget is zero. You are only as strong as the weakest link in your contact list. In this ecosystem, no institution is an island. We are all connected by a web of digital dependencies that no single person fully understands. When a small software firm in Texas or a server in Singapore sneezes, Wall Street catches a cold. Or more accurately, it gets held for ransom. The interconnectedness that makes global trade possible is exactly what makes global contagion inevitable. We built this system to be efficient. We connected everything to everything else to save time and money. But in doing so, we created a perfect environment for a predator to thrive. And this brings us to the final uncomfortable realization about the world we have built. It is not just about hackers or software bugs. It is about a fundamental flaw in the design of globalization itself. Globalization was sold to us as a guarantee of mutual prosperity. They called it the flat world. They promised that if we all traded together, we would never go to war together. It was a beautiful theory, but they forgot to mention one critical detail of physics. On a flat surface, fire spreads much faster than it does on rugged terrain. We have constructed a global financial architecture that relies entirely on absolute trust and seamless cooperation. We built Fedwire, SWIFT, and the Internet to act as the universal language of commerce. But while the technical infrastructure is unified, the political will is fracturing. We have a singular digital nervous system trying to serve a schizophrenic geopolitical body. The cables connect us, but the intentions divide us. The fragility is not just in the money, it is in the secrets. Look at the Panama Papers in 2016 and the Paradise Papers in 2017. These leaks did not come from robbing a heavily guarded bank vault. They came from compromising law firms and data storage providers. They revealed that data security extends far beyond financial institutions into the legal and support sectors that underpin them. The offshore world, the supposed sanctuary of the elite, proved to be just as porous as a cheap email account. There is no dark corner left to hide in. There is a supreme dry irony in this design. We created a global financial system that requires every nation to hold hands and cooperate to maintain stability. We built a machine that runs on the fuel of international harmony. Yet we are operating it in a reality where major powers are sharpening knives behind their backs, engaging in state-sponsored cyber warfare. We are trying to run a trust-based operating system on zero-trust hardware. It is a failure of engineering so massive that it is almost invisible, because we are standing right inside it. The dependence on digital technology has created systemic vulnerabilities that never existed in the analog age. The lights are still on, the tickers are still moving, the system appears to be working, but the foundation has been eaten away by the very connectivity we worshipped. We are driving a sports car at 200 miles an hour, and we just realized the brakes are made of paper. So this leaves us with one final haunting question for you. The individual holding the assets, the savings, the legacy. In a world where custody can be broken by a line of code, and value depends on the cooperation of enemies, what do you actually own? We spend our entire lives worrying about inflation, about the dollar losing value, or the Federal Reserve raising interest rates. Those are valid concerns, but they are old concerns. The story of the 21st century is not about the value of money. It is about the control of the ledger. From the Morse code signals of 1918 to the smart contracts on the blockchain today, the tools have changed, but the nature of the game remains the same. Whoever holds the ledger holds the truth. And right now, that ledger is sitting exposed in the middle of a digital battlefield, where the line between independent hacker, state intelligence agency, and organized crime is blurred into nothing. I am not telling you this so you withdraw all your cash and stuff it under a mattress. Physical cash has its own risks. I am telling you this so you understand one thing. The safety you feel when you look at your bank account balance is just a temporary state. It is an illusion maintained by firewalls that are under siege every single second. Stop looking at the price, start looking at the infrastructure. Because when the real storm comes, it will not come from a red number on a stock ticker. It will come when the signal lights simply go out. If you want to continue decoding the hidden layers of financial history that textbooks refuse to teach you, subscribe to Financial Money History. We have many more files to open.